Or all those on one?
I'd like to call this regular council meeting of April 14th to order. I'm looking for, no, I'm actually going to make a few announcements before I do an adoption of the agenda. A couple of things. One is council and staff, after months of deliberations, have finalized the budget. I just want to let the public know that the budget is public information. It's being advertised to the public, and there's an opportunity for the public to make submissions to council, comments, questions on the budget until May 1st. I think it's May 15th that we have to, by the Local Government Act, have it adopted. So May 1st is the period that the public can make comments to council on the budget. May 1st is also the last day that outstanding building permits can be renewed and finished off at no charge. So the city has had a push on for getting these building permits finalized and cleared off the books, and they've decided it's been come up to a year now, Mr. Strachan? So it's coming up to a year that this no charge to reopen building permits, and that's coming to an end. I also would like to let the public know that the renovations on the main floor of City Hall and the side entrance are completed. The planning department is in place. That will be the one-stop entrance very shortly for accessing any city services. But right now, the handicap access at the side entrance is open for the public. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda with any additions. Councillor Leno, Councillor Brothers, all those in favor? Motion is carried. And I need a motion to adopt the minutes of the public hearing, the zoning amendment bylaw number 2068 of March 24th. And that's the minutes to be received. Councillor Nixon, Councillor English, all those in favor? Motion's carried. And the public hearing minutes to be received for information of the zoning amendment bylaw number 2069 of March 24th. I need a motion for that as well. Councillor English and Councillor Orlando. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And item C is the minutes of the regular council meeting be adopted as read. That's March 24th as well. Councillor Nixon and Councillor English. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And the special budget council minutes of April 9th, passed and adopted by council at that meeting. Councillor Duke and Councillor Brothers. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from any of those minutes? Anybody would like to bring up? We have two delegations today. The first one is Rona Martin, who is the chair of the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District, and Rona is here representing SILGA, which is Southern Interior Local Government Association, of which we are members. Ms. Martin, you have the chair of the floor.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today, and I'm here today in a role as past president. I've been dragged back in again to play the role as past president. I think I've been there about 4 times, so I'm hopeful that this is the last time and that Martina will be able to take over that role shortly. So the reason I'm here today is to talk to you about our association. As the mayor has said, you are members, and as new council members, perhaps you're not really aware of the purpose of our association and what we are all about. So just to give you a context of the reason, I think that you received some information about the geographic area of our association and the members within that association, and also the executive of the association. So you have that there, and if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer. You may notice, if you're looking at that, you'll see that Golden is not a member of SILGA. They are a member of the ABLG. But Area A of the regional district is a member of SILGA. So quite often a member from Golden will come to our association, or a member, the area director will go to AKPLG, just to make sure that there's good cross connection. The reason that we're there is to try and assist local governments in moving issues of importance to our area forward. And you will find this year, I hope that you will come to our convention. And I hope also that you will be able to attend EBCM. But the process is that you have discussions at your local council table, and then perhaps somebody said, well, you know, I heard somebody else is having that issue. You know, how are we going to address that? And so what you would do is you would send a resolution to try and deal with whatever the issue may be to our association, and from there it would go on to UBCM. And UBCM likes that when it has seen that it's gone to our association. That means that it's a greater concern than just from your local government association, whether it be your council or a regional district board. And they realize that you've talked about it at the convention, and it's got the support of that body, so then it goes forward to the main floor of UBCM. Another a function of our association, and I've been there for quite a while, and it's something that we've worked on over many years, is being able to try and provide education to you closer to home. So for the past few years, the executive has had an education committee, and they did have a very successful, basically what it was a 101 on budgeting, for people to come there and learn about the budgeting, because I think you would find if you came to the regional district board, you would find that the budget process there was a little bit different. Just as if I was to come to municipal council, you know, it wouldn't be as easy for me because I'm used to our system. And there's things that people think they can do when they're newly elected, and they find out quite quickly that they can't. So we all know that local governments are facing financial challenges, and so at the Silver Table they said, you know, if we offered this locally, where people were able to drive to Kelowna, for instance, or drive to Kamloops in a day and come back in a day, then there's not an expense of going to Vancouver or to Richmond, and it's much cheaper for our membership. They've also been working on issues such as physician recruitment, because that seems to be an issue that is throughout our region. So they're taking some things that are not provincial in nature and working on them on behalf of our region. So over the years, they've actually really stepped up their game in trying to provide service to the membership. This year, you'll note that the convention is in Kamloops. There is, as always, a jam-packed agenda, and Kamloops really does a good job of entertaining everybody, as does Revelstoke when it's hosted here, and we've been here several times. The last time, people got the chance to go up to the ski hill, which they really enjoyed. And you know, I'm really basically here today to talk to you, or to try and convince you to make sure that you come. I think it's important for you. Probably the best part of going to things like that is the friendships and the colleagues that you meet and become friends with. And it's really nice when you're dealing with an issue in Revelstoke, you know, what's Henry doing about that same situation, or what's Osuya is doing about that same situation. You can share knowledge. There's people that have gone through the same situations as you have, as they've grown a long time before you. And it may have changed a little, but you know, it's always good to look back on things and see how they address the issue. So, you know, once again, basically that's what I'm here for. I'm here to say, hey, you know, I'm here representing Silva. We'd love to see you all there. We're hopeful that you're registered already, and you know, and I'm hopeful that I'll see you at UBCM as well. I'll throw that pitch in there as well. So, does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from council? Councilor Orlando?
Your Worship, through the chair, thank you. And I guess my question is, what is your advice on being as effective as possible on advancing issues through SILGA to UBCM, and then ultimately getting approval at UBCM and those issues going on to have an impact?
Okay, so if you are have an issue at the Revelstoke City Council table, make sure that the resolution that you're sending first hopefully on time, and if not, there's a process for late resolutions. Make sure your resolution is clear and, and concise, and people aren't saying, well, what do they really mean by that? So that's one thing that I would really stress upon you. Another thing that I would really stress upon you is to make sure that you have somebody in the room that can talk to the resolution. That might not be so important at Silva, but at UBCM, it can be extremely important. We are a vast province. We have different takes on how things should be done, and there's things that have got passed that perhaps would not have got passed if somebody was in the room to speak to that resolution to make sure that you clearly understood what it was all about. And sometimes if it is a little gray, staff at either SOGA or UBCM will get hold of you, but not always. They may interpret it as doing something else. And it's always good to, when you're in the room, you need to work the room. It's like getting elected. You work the room and you say that I've got a resolution coming up, it's such and such, I really appreciate your support. This is the reason why. It might not be, there's times when at both of those organizations, you'll read in the media, and this is no disrespect to the media, but you'll read in the media some comments about, a silly resolution about, for instance, cats. Well, you probably had resolutions here about your rabbits up at the hospital, eating somebody's roses or something, but cats can be a huge issue for somebody, and it's not an issue for each municipality or regional district, but for whoever is dealing with it. It's obviously an important issue that they're struggling with. The deer issue, for instance. Look at the debate that's taken place about the deer issue, but they've had people at the table lined up to speak and to make sure that their issue got pushed along. So if I could give you any bit of advice, make sure that somebody is there. And in particular at UBCM, it could be challenging because you as a council may have said, we want to meet with this minister and this minister and this minister, and you're watching what's happening with resolutions, and it may be time for the meeting. It may be worth it, though, to keep at least one member of council back there watching your resolution. That would be probably the best advice that I could give you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Councillor Nixon.
Just a comment. I've been to SILGA twice and to UBCM twice, and it's really good education and particularly supportive for new councillors. And the caliber of speakers are really good, usually involving comedy. The best I heard was Trevor Linden talking about when he meant to start with Vancouver Canucks, and Stan Schmiel was still having a cigarette in his coffee break time.
Yes, as you go to state, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about fun too. You go there and people at home don't believe you that you're starting your sessions, early morning sessions. Usually start at 7 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes you're not done until 6 or 7 at night. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun too. So make sure that you have the fun, because that's what sticks with you.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that over the years I've met with Rona on numerous occasions, and at these conventions, of course, chair of the regional district. I just wanted to publicly thank Rona for all the help that she's given Revelstoke and being a good advocate for any issues that we have, SOGA and UBCM. Some of the items that we brought forward usually always center around the Trans-Canada Highway, but Rona has shown some very good leadership as far as pushing for Trans-Canada Highway upgrades, and it's just nice to know that we have somebody that's watching our back down in Salmon Arm as well as up in here. But I just wanted to thank you for coming, and thank you for being a good partner for Revelstoke.
You're welcome. It's nice to be a partner. It's been, I was thinking today as I was coming up here, the Revelstoke negotiating committee meetings, I still have my clock on the wall from the middle, but I did at one time spend a lot of time up here. My only career all-night meeting took place in City Council chambers here. I remember when the CEO ordered Chinese food at midnight, and I thought, well, that's kind of weird. We usually ate Subway at 5, but at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was very grateful that he had ordered Chinese food. So I have spent a lot of time in Revelstoke. I have family connections here. Brian grew up here, so we do feel a close connection to Revelstoke. One thing that I would ask you to keep in the back of your mind, I was an electoral area director for quite some time before I ran for a position on SILGA. And the reason that I ran was because I thought to myself, it can't always be somebody else. There is a time when our local government has to step forward and do part of the work. So keep that in the back of your mind, you know, if you're here for a while, say, you know, maybe it's time for somebody from Revelstoke to be seeking a position on SILGA and working your way up. You know, I appreciate that. I'd support you in any way that I could. And if there's anything I can help you with, please feel free to contact me. And our new municipal or local government building will be open in San Laurent, and I encourage you all to come and have a look. I'm really excited to see that open. I remember when Jeff Battersby was the mayor here, and he was on our board there, and we were making our way through our current building now. We were getting the grand tour just before it opened, and it seemed like such a big building then, and we've taken on so much, and Revelstoke has been part of that. So it's kind of neat to see how it all grows and fits together. But thank you very much for welcoming me here, and I appreciate the time that you give me.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Mike Levecchio from CP.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, appreciate the opportunity to be here. Chief Gerard, Rhoda, always a pleasure to see you. You know, you're incredibly well served through the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District with Rhoda Martin, somebody I've had the pleasure to work with in a number of different issues. Rhoda, you're just a miracle worker. Anyway, always nice to be able to follow somebody of Rhoda's caliber. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of a presentation I actually gave Rhoda's board a couple of weeks ago in seminar on our movement of dangerous goods. I know there are some questions that you have regarding local operations. I'm happy to address those, but let's get through this portion and then open up the floor to any questions that you have. So you all know about CP, but just so we're clear, we have operations in 6 provinces and 13 American states, about 14,000 miles of track, which makes us the 5th largest railroad in North America. We work very closely with communities, including Revelstoke, on emergency response. What we're doing today is what we call a Phase 1 overview. It's a high-level overview for you, to give you a sense of our roles and responsibilities under the various federal acts that govern our operations. We also do tabletop exercises and occasionally mock exercises. We're big fans of tabletop exercises. We welcome the opportunity to do one locally. And then we provide specific training for fire departments through our Railroad 101 course. In this case, our dangerous goods manager comes out and the presentation is done directly to the fire department and usually on training notes. That's typical. And we work around the fire department's schedule, especially where you have a mixed paid and volunteer fire department. We recognize that people have day jobs. We want to ensure they have the opportunity to do them. Now, talking about dangerous goods, first question for all of you, Councillor, who owns the tracks? We do. CP owns our right-of-way right about 50 feet either side of the center line of the tracks. We own the ground underneath as well. Who owns the tank cars? Councillor Orlando.
It's actually in the presentation. You guys do, but the contents are owned by the person in there. So
Well
read up.
Well read. Well done. As Councillor Orlando indicated, we own the tank cars are owned by third parties, third-party lessors, or by product producers. Very similarly, who owns the product in the cars? Obviously, the product producer. Must CP move dangerous goods? Mayor McKee.
I would say yes.
Yes, we have a common carrier obligation under the Canada Transportation Act, sections 113 through 116, if you wish to look it up, which requires us to move all commodities. Now this sometimes is a controversial point, but think of it this way. Any municipal water system requires chlorine. Do you want the railroad deciding whether or not that chlorine gets moved into the market that you serve? Finally, who's liable for the movement of dangerous goods? In fact, we are. In the event of an incident, CP is liable. You as a municipal body may incur some incremental expense as part of the incident response. That bill eventually makes its way to us. Now when we move dangerous goods, there's a very elaborate inspection process which occurs, and it starts well before we ever accept the car for movement. Our customers have certain obligations that they must meet. They're detailed up here. We then, only when they transmit confirmation that those obligations are met, only once we receive the paperwork supporting the movement of the given dangerous good, do we accept the car for service and switch it into the train. Once underway, there are numerous inspections that occur. Those include both our highly trained crews and wayside detection, trackside detection devices such as hot box detectors and wheel impact load detectors. Cars are moved efficiently through the system. We try not to dwell them. We only get paid if they move. So our goal is going to be to keep the velocity of that asset, which we do not own, moving forward. Now, this has resulted for CP in the most, we have been and continue to be, the safest railroad in North America. We have been so for over a decade now. And our best corporate performance, the best corporate performance we have had was in 2014, for reference sake. 99.997% of the time, dangerous goods are getting to market without any type of incident. But that 0.03% which you see on television, that's what's focusing everybody's minds in the aftermath of Lac Mégantic. You need to know that dangerous goods shipments as a percentage of CP's traffic are increasing. They now represent roughly 9% of our overall traffic. But as the volume has increased, again, the safety record has improved. We take that role extremely seriously. We train relentlessly for it. It is part of our corporate culture. It is one of our foundational values that we will operate safely. There's also been a tremendous amount of regulatory change post-Lac Mégantic. Transport Canada has issued emergency directives on crew size, train securement, braking, and is moving to phase out the DOT 111 tank car, the general service tank car. There are thousands of these tank cars in service across North America. They will be phased out for the transportation of dangerous goods in 2 years. In the United States, they'll be phased out in 3 years. The successor tank car, the CPC 1232, as it is known, has been the only tank car that anyone could purchase on the North American market since 2011. It will be phased out by 2025 in an announcement that both Transport Canada and the Federal Railroad Administration in the States made a couple of weeks ago. The successor to it will then be the only approved tank car for dangerous goods. Transport Canada has also issued a number of directives under the Transportation of Dangerous Goods Act. CP, of course, meets or exceeds those requirements. These relate to testing and documentation, to information sharing, and we do transmit on an annual basis to the Revelstoke Fire Department a list of dangerous goods, which is complete, which is a comprehensive list of dangerous goods segmented by quarter. That's what Transport Canada requires us to do, assuming Revelstoke makes the request and files the appropriate paperwork with the regulator. There are also emergency response plans now in place for a number of different hydrocarbons, including crude oil and ethanol. And the railroads corporately do support these increases in standards. I wanted to highlight one particular change for you, just to give you a sense of the scope. The old rule for handbrakes required sufficient handbrakes. Now, what does sufficient mean? It means something very different at Glacier Station than it does in Revelstoke Yard, and certainly than it does on the prairies. How do you come up with a rule for applying handbrakes that could address such as diverse a topography as we face on this terminal, let alone the rest of the continent? The old rule said sufficient. How did we know if it was sufficient? We'd apply a number of handbrakes, and then we'd put the locomotive in throttle and test it. If the train moved, insufficient handbrakes. The train was stationary, sufficient handbrakes. Now we have a gradient from Transport Canada, which, based on the tonnage of the train involved and sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second here. Based on the tonnage and on the grade of the track, the steepness of the track, sets out a minimum number of handbrakes which must be applied. We must then test those handbrakes to ensure that is a sufficient amount. In my view, it's actually a little bit of a step backwards. We're introducing the human element in a way that was not previously present. Under the sufficient test, the only way you knew was if you tested. Now you have a piece of paper that says so many handbrakes, so much grade, so much weight. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's snowing, it's raining, you're tired. Maybe you accept the paper as sufficient. I don't know. The rule says we got to test, and we do proficiency tests on our crews to ensure that they in fact do that. But that said, the more you add some complexity, the more you introduce some different types of risk into the process. I simply highlight it for you as a means to give you some context. That the more we complicate these processes, sometimes we're not necessarily improving. I'm going to wrap up here. We'll talk briefly about Lac Megantic itself. Of course, it was a horrible tragedy that occurred. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada identified 18 contributing factors to that incident. I'm going to highlight a couple. The first, for me, and for those of you that don't know, I'm, in addition to being Director of Government Affairs, I'm also a qualified conductor. I actually spent most of March operating out of Revelstoke. Know the two subdivisions, east and west, extremely well. The one that really stood out for me was, one, their testing procedure for handbrakes involved using the locomotive brake. In effect, the company involved in that incident was not testing anything other than the locomotive. A second thing that struck me was the track speed involved. When at the point of departure of the derailment, the train was estimated to be traveling 67 miles an hour on track which was certified for 10 miles an hour. It was a 40-degree curve at the point of departure. Physics alone, it should be no surprise to anybody that that train left the tracks. So the question is, Why did it leave the tracks? It was out of control. That's the reason why. Due to a total lack of care on the part of the operator, on the part of the company behind that operator, and frankly, a lack of oversight by Transport Canada, who is the regulator. The difference between MMA and CP, however, is humongous. We are treated differently from regulatory purposes. That's a short line, where we are what's known as a Class 1. We have a safety culture that is ingrained into everything we do. We invest heavily in our rolling stock and our track. We invest heavily in training. We train relentlessly. We work with the communities where we operate. You should take away from this that you're in a better situation than your compatriots in Quebec. We will work with you, we want to work with you, we want to train with you, and you should have some confidence in our ability to operate the railroad in a safe manner. Now, I'm going to wrap up by highlighting some work that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and my trade association, the Railroad Association of Canada, that we collectively did a number of years ago. We developed some proximity guidelines jointly to assist municipalities in the approval of developments in direct proximity to the tracks. This is a particularly important document for communities that are growing, and I include Revelstoke on that list. The proximity guidelines give you a sense of where you should look in terms of locating people in direct proximity to what is an industrial activity. They're there to help you, but they are guidelines. There is nothing saying you can't exceed these numbers as you look at the development of a given location. I think practically speaking, post-Lac-Mégantic, if we've learned anything, it's that it doesn't make sense to put houses right next to the tracks. It doesn't make sense to locate a school right next to the tracks. It is an industrial activity which we are undertaking. I would add just one other point for the chief's benefit. I did a similar presentation in another community down on the coast, and just prior to doing the presentation, I had the opportunity to visit their brand new fire hall. Spectacular facility. It is about 500 feet south of our main classification yard in Metro Vancouver. If there were a leak, depending on the wind, it might be in the hot zone. These are things that, frankly, 3 years ago we just didn't think about the way we should today. These are considerations that I would suggest to you need to make as part of your deliberations as a council. With that, happy to open up the floor to any questions you have. I do appreciate the time to be here. Thank you very much.
Councilor Nixon.
Mike, thanks. It's my second time to hear this in the regional district, and there's some really good questions. One of the best questions I heard was from the colleague in there, the sick nurse, was talking about how you are so under the gun with moving grain, quotas, and crude, and just when do the tracks get enough attention?
Right. Track inspections on our main line are occurring all the time. They are required to be inspected on a weekly basis. We exceed that by a factor of 2 or 3. We as train crew are also inspecting the tracks when we're operating the train. And if we note a defect, if we feel a dip, let's say, we're going to let the rail traffic controller know. That signals a ticket, that piece of track will go out and get inspected. So the inspections are frankly occurring non-stop. The regulatory requirement is once a week, and as I said, we exceed that by a factor of 2 or 3.
Can I just ask something?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just when you talk about the tank cars, the 111s,
Right.
Is there any way that a resolution can go forward to stop using those cars west of Calgary, coming through those Parks Canada segment and the mountain segment?
Well,
Is there any possibility of doing that?
is there a possibility? Yes, absolutely you could do that sort of a resolution. It could come up through FCM, let's say.
So-
Would it have any impact? I can tell you, our chief executive mused about whether or not common carrier obligation had served its purpose and whether we should move on from that. And there was a statement from Transport Canada the next day saying, we're not going to touch the common carrier obligation. Read into that what you will. As a railroad, from a risk profile, there are commodities which we move which we would choose not to move. Heck, given the choice. We don't have a choice. That's where it lies.
Okay.
Councillor Duke.
Worship, thanks again, Mike, for coming in and speaking with us. As far as the cars, you have the older cars, you have the newer cars. What's the difference in those cars? What makes an old car obsolete? And then what technology are you guys putting in? Because it seems interesting. And sometimes I look at the train thing, why would the train not know the second all those cars are coupled that the wrong one's connected? The computer wouldn't make it impossible to move, or if there's a diversion in the track, that it should know that that's happening just because it's sensors on the train. You wouldn't necessarily have to rely on a human feeling a dip.
That's a great question. Obviously, there's a lot of technology trackside, first off, including passing a current through the track so that we know when a rail has broken. It'll show on our centralized traffic control screen, which is our electronic schematic of the railroad. It will show us what's known as a track occupancy. And a train is also a track occupancy. If there's an unanticipated track occupancy, that's an immediate red flag that something is out there that is not supposed to be there. We will stop train traffic, it will be inspected. So a lot of that technology already exists. I mentioned the hotbox detectors. There's one just to the west of us and one just to the east of us. They read the temperature of the wheels as they pass over the detection grid at track speed. If the temperature of the wheels or the bearings, or if equipment is dragging, it sends an immediate electronic signal to the locomotive cab and to the rail traffic controller at our operations center saying hot wheel or dragging equipment, whatever the case may be. There are specific rules that govern our actions at that point. We bring the train to a controlled stop, do the inspection. If it's a hot wheel, let's say the brakes are sticking on the car. If it's a hot wheel, you'll feel the heat. You can then take corrective action. What that does for our crews, it turns them from being purely reactive to being proactive. They can deal with a situation, an emergent situation, before it becomes a catastrophe, before there is an actual failure. So you take the technology, you take the training, you blend them together, and you wind up with the safety record that we have. As to the tank cars, the difference between the CPC 1232 and the DOT 111 has to do with shielding on either end. There's additional shielding on the CPC 112s. There's also an additional blanket around the car. The next generation tank car will deal more, the one beyond the 1232 will deal more directly with that shielding and additional shielding. DOT 111s can be retrofitted. It is unknown at this point if the next generation tank car will also, you'll be able to upgrade the existing fleet, or if we're talking about a wholesale replacement.
So the question that I have is pertaining to the local incident.
Right.
Have CP determined what caused that? I see a whole bunch of work going on with the track and rebuilding. and what, I'd just like to hear the start and finish of what happened.
You bet. You bet. As I think everybody in this room knows, we had an incident last weekend, 5 to 7 days ago, 8 days ago. Two grain cars derailed and tipped over just down the street here. Our emergency plan was enacted immediately. That included me being notified and me reaching out to the mayor. Our superintendent reached out to the fire chief, and the formal notification goes to the RCMP that is handled by the CP Police Service. We were given the proximity to the station. We had people there immediately to do the assessment. We, at this point, are not prepared to release a cause because we are still trying to determine the exact cause. This is one of those incidents where there were numerous contributing factors, and determining what caused those two cars to leave the tracks is not yet decided. What we do in those cases is we take all the equipment, the downloads from the locomotive, which monitor throttle position, brake application, number of different factors. All that information is now in our lab in Winnipeg for review by our technical experts. Once we determine a cause, we will make that information will be reported to the Transportation Safety Board, as is normal procedure. But at this point, we haven't made the determination.
It just seems like a lot more extensive rebuilding of the track is going on than where the incident happened. Is that?
That is coincidental.
Okay.
What you're seeing out there right now, they're removing a switch. If you see, they're working there today. They're removing a switch to the old house track.
Your Worship, the question I'd like to ask is, just on some background, like I've learned about what Transport Canada's role is. I've learned about what the Transportation Safety Board's role is, including their outstanding list of things they'd like to see changed here. I understand our ability as a council to lobby through FCM for changes, and there has been an active lobby federally in the past couple of years. But my concern is much more parochial about, and I perceive my job here to be about the safety of the citizens of Revelstoke. I'd like to ask, in terms of our interface between CP and emergency services here, in our exercises to respond to something when it happens. And my big worry is a toxic gas that's heavier than air that could have a big trouble to deal with. In our training exercises, do we have benchmarks? Do we have targets? Have we been meeting those targets? What is our track record in dealing with those? And if we haven't, what is our plan for improving those?
Chief, I'm going to largely throw this one to you, because the municipality has the responsibility for the development, testing, and implementation of their emergency plan. I'm confident in our abilities to resource an incident, but it's not for me to judge Revelstoke's emergency plan. So, Chief, if you don't mind me passing the buck.
Sure, thank you. Revelstoke and Area Emergency Plan program has been in existence for a number of years now. We practice regularly, staff and our agencies take training regularly. In fact, there's training tomorrow actually at the Emergency Operations Center. I can assure Council and the citizens of Revelstoke that in the event of an emergency, our plans, our systems, for whatever that incident might be, whether it be wildfire, whether it be a track incident, whether it's a semi coming down the Trans-Canada Highway, we treat everything the same. So if evacuation had to happen, we would initiate our Emergency Operations Center, and we would involve all the various agencies and make sure that the incidents happen properly and safely, to make sure that we mitigate the risk that it's for us.
Any other questions from council? I think it's obvious to CP and to council and the community that we dodged a bullet with a bunch of lentils being dumped on the ground, and we're fortunate that it wasn't something more serious. So there is a lot of concern in the community, and I know that CP takes, obviously by your presentation, safety is the number one concern. But it still keeps the community a little on edge when the commodities that are going through here, and we understand that they have to go through. But it's a concern for council, it's a concern for the community, and I just want to make sure that we're all being as vigilant as possible. But I appreciate you coming today, Mike, and enlightening us a little bit. And I have your card, and we will stay in contact.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks,
Moving on to item 8A, which is Heritage Designation Bylaw number 2057. You're making that motion, Councilor Williams?
I will. The Heritage Designation Bylaw number 2057, being a bylaw to designate and protect the heritage property, be adopted.
Need a second for that motion? That's Councilor English, and I'm assuming this has to do with Mountain View School. Is there any questions on this motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Public hearing summary, zoning amendment bylaw, rezoning bylaw application, all 40 hours for Councilor Duke.
The council received the public hearing summary for zoning amendment bylaw 2068 and rezoning bylaw number 2069 for 1240 Powerhouse Road.
Motion by Councilor Duke, second by Councilor Mason. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Motion's carried.
8C, Your Worship, that zoning amendment bylaw, I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2068 being a bylaw to establish a comprehensive development zone 16 receive for reading.
Motion by Councilor Orlando, seconded by Councilor Brothers. Discussion on this motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll do the next one.
Yes, please.
That zoning amendment bylaw number 2069 received third reading.
Motion by Councilor Brothers, seconded by Councilor Duke. Any discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. New business.
I'm going to recuse myself with respect to 9A, B, and C for client relations.
We'll call you back in.
Thank you.
Who's going to do these? Councilor Orlando. Just give me 1 second.
Should we do these separate?
Yes, we should.
So 9A, I move that official community plan amendment bylaw number 2072 receive first and second reading.
So, we have a motion by Councilor Orlando, second by Councilor Nixon. Any discussion on the motion?
I've just had advice from staff to do them together.
Okay.
Okay, and then 9A as well, I move that, and that the public hearing be held at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, May 12th, 2015, at 3 p.m.
Sorry, I was just verifying something else. Okay. Is that addition to that motion okay with the seconder? So we have this consolidated motion. Is there any discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll recuse myself for B and C here because we are on vacation around the company. It's in conflict of interest.
We're still okay.
Do we need to read
Nobody else can leave.
Do we need to read Councilor Brothers back in?
No.
Sorry? No, she's staying out to finish the speech.
Okay, so since we're still in administration, I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2073 being bylaw to include vacation rental use in RR 4 rural residential 0.4 hectare zoning district receive first and second readings.
And public hearing.
and that the public hearing be held at a regular council meeting on Tuesday, May 12th, 2015 at 3 p.m.
Motion by Councilor Orlando, seconded by Councilor Nixon. Is there any discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Keep going to the next one, and then I think we can open the door then.
Nobody needs to come back in, okay. 9C, I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2074 being bylaw 200, am I on the right one here? Yes. Okay, excuse me, I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2074 being bylaw to allow for use receive first and second readings, and that the public hearing be held at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, May 12th, 2015 at 3 p.m.
Motion by Councilor Orlando, seconded by Councilor Nixon. Discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Don, going in the door? We are at 9D.
I'll move. Move the proposed community consultation plan for the zoning bylaw text amendment and rezoning application be approved, and that the following completion of the proposed community consultation staff report back to council with the proposed comprehensive development zoning district 17, CD 17, the community input received and recommended conditions.
Motion by Councilor Duke, seconded by Councilor Nixon. You're doing something on this one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. As noted, this is a fairly major project for the community. It's located on Nickel Road and involves two large parcels, as well as the property owner is just nearing completion on securing the little mini hole in the donut here to make a contiguous piece. You'll note in the extensive package that's been prepared for it by Selkirk Planning, there's a number of drawings in there that depict the entire development that include that donut. At this point in time, it's not included as part of the bylaw. The intent being is that it would be added to the application once the property owner has changed. The consultation plan itself, you'll see, is figure 7 in the report. Because of the size and scale of this project, it was felt that there was a necessity to do consultation beyond just the regular public hearing. So what you see before you is a recommendation that letters be sent out to property owners on the south side of the silhouette, informing them of the application, providing some preliminary information, providing a link to a website that will give them the full package. You'll see that it's almost 120 pages long. We want to send that out to all the neighbors, but having them receive a website link that will give them that, and just having the preliminary information is hopefully adequate for the initial introduction. We're also recommending that there be a public open house scheduled at the school on April 30th between 6 and 8 p.m. So that people in the neighborhood have an opportunity to come and see the drawings, hear a brief presentation from the city staff on what the project is proposing, the different components of it, and then have an opportunity to ask questions. The intent being we're going to set up a series of panel boards, have city staff available to answer questions that the community may have. We'll have a one-page questionnaire that will have lots of room for comments and questions for people to ask our staff. We intend to bring that package back to council as a comprehensive package of the input received along with referral agencies. And with that would be a series of recommendations for the development itself. So how the community has responded to the proposal for the different zoning districts, as well as the densities, as well as the massing, heights, all the different components of the actual proposed CD zone, and will be presented to council as a proposed or draft bylaw. So this would be the formal CD zone that would be incorporated into the city zoning bylaw. Now that all depends on how the consultation goes. If at the end of the consultation period there's a strong sense that there's a need for additional consultation, then that's likely the recommendation that would come back to council as to host a second public public open house, or make revisions to the plan, or ask the applicant to make revisions to the plan, and then go back to the community for initial input. So that's what's going to, is the process that's proposed before you now. This is all in advance of the formal bylaw process. So that process would take place after this has happened. That's where we said again, we would send letters to everybody in that area and have the formal public meeting at the council at 3 p.m. The intent being is that by the time we get to the public hearing, the formal public hearing, we've heard the mass amount of input and have an opportunity to address that input so that it's not coming at that point in the bylaw preparation. Thank you, Your Worship.
And I'm assuming that part of the reason would be that the proponent then could be looking at community input and possibly making changes to the development before it goes for a rezoning application.
Before it's the final bylaw readings take place. Yes, Your Worship.
I guess one question to council is who is going to be available to go to this April 30th meeting, because the Silga convention is on at the same time. It's just that people should be writing it in their calendars, and what we're doing now is we're taking questions on the motion or questions to Mr. Strachan. Councilor Nixon.
Just kudos to Mr. Strachan and to the developer. I think they're getting off on the right foot with this, with the neighborhood groups, and I think it's a good process.
I agree 100%. This looks like a development that does warrant a lot more than the normal public input, and I think this is a good step in the right direction. Councilor English.
I will be able to join you at that.
Okay. Councilor Rondo.
And for those of us attending, still express regrets for not being able to.
Any other discussion or comments to Mr. Strachan or to the motion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. I think that pen's mine, isn't it?
Okay,
We're on 9E, development variance permit.
yes, I will move that the development variance permit application submitted by Acora Engineering for the property lot A, plan EPP 40589, 1872 Trans Canada Highway to vary sign bylaw number 2054, sections 4.65 or 6 to allow for the proposed signs to extend above the roof of the gas station canopy be approved subject to the following conditions. The site plan and sign plans to be included with the development variance permit as Schedule A, and the corporate officer be authorized to issue the development variance permit once the above noted condition has been satisfied. That the development variance permit application submitted by Acora Engineering for the property lot A, plan EPP 40589, 1872 Trans Canada Highway to vary sign bylaw number 2054, section 6.7I, to increase the permit maximum height of the freestanding sign from 7.6.
Yeah. I think we should do these separately because there's 3 issues here that we're dealing with. Is that?
Yeah, we can.
So the first one is the motion to allow the development variance permit be approved, and this is to allow the canopy sign.
Canopy signs and the corporate officer be authorized to issue the development variance permit once the above noted condition has been satisfied.
We have a seconder for that is Councilor Nixon. Just, so it's moved by Councilor Duke, seconded by Councilor Nixon. Is there questions or discussion on the motion? You have something to show us?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay. I think I'm short of it.
Very briefly, Your Worship, the variance application is for 3 variances. 2 are signed bylaw variances, the third is a variance to parking. This application, or this report is a little unusual in that staff have recommended approval of one of the variances, but it's recommended that the other 2 variances be denied, which is why you have a lengthy resolution. So the first variance, the one that you're considering this time, is for a extension of the sign above the roof line. So the Petro Canada logo has a maple leaf that extends above the roof line. The sign bylaw doesn't allow for signs to project above your roof. Obviously, that regulation was not put in place envisioning this type of a scenario. It's envisioning a much larger scenario, but the bylaw is what the bylaw is. So staff supported that variance to allow for that local extension.
Well, I'm glad to see and support this variance. I think it makes the sign look better, and I have some issues with what else is coming up, but I'm glad to see that this variance is being allowed. Discussion on the motion. Questions to Mr. Strachan? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Second motion?
That the development variant permit application submitted by Ecora Engineering for the property lot A, plan EPP 40589, Trans Canada Highway, to vary sign bylaw number 2054, section 6.7I, to increase the permitted maximum height of a freestanding sign from 7.6 meters to 9 meters be denied.
Motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Mr. Strachan?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is the second sign variance that they've sought, and this is to make their pedestal sign, or the freestanding sign, taller than the bylaw allows. Staff haven't supported this request, and that this doesn't fit with the other two signs that are within this block, which is for McDonald's and A&W. And we couldn't identify a sightline benefit that would be provided to the business by making the sign larger than its neighbor signs. The corner on the highway, the way it corners up and away, doesn't allow for additional viewing of this sign coming from the east. And from the west, the actual sight line is blocked by the bridge until near an exit of the bridge due to the structure. So there isn't an identified necessity for that additional 1.2 meters in height. It isn't blocked by any identified feature. Other than to make it higher, that's the only justification that we've been able to identify at this point. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Burgess.
Where exactly is the sign going? Do you have an idea of that area?
So right across from, the road from it is the smaller shell Tim Horton sign, which is 6 meters in height. Of course, both of which would be much smaller than the 14-meter high sign that's there for Shell and Tim Hortons that's further up on the highway.
So I went down and had a look around, and I have to agree with Mr. Strachan that I don't see the advantage of this sign exceeding the bylaw for height. I think he's going the business there will get just as much impact at the height of the bylaw as opposed to extending the height, and I support the motion to deny the variance. Is there any more discussion from council? Questions from Mr. Strachan? The motion is to deny the variance. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Third motion.
For the development variance permit application submitted by Cora Engineering for the property lot A, plan EPP 40589, 1872 Trans Canada Highway, to vary zoning bylaw number 1264, section 12, to reduce the number of required vehicle parking stalls for a property 36-seat coffee shop from 12 to 7 be denied.
We have a motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Mr. Strachan, you got any comments on this?
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff haven't supported the proposed variance for a couple of reasons. One is the level of use on this site is proposed to be quite high. So we have a gas station island in the center with very tight turning radiuses, particularly for larger vehicles. Then we have a convenience store that's proposed on one side, and then the coffee shop, the Starbucks restaurant on this side. What amplifies that impact is the fact that there's a drive-through that extends along the back of the building for the Starbucks itself. Once these uses start to accumulate on the property, there's not a lot of area remaining for parking. The report that's been provided by the applicant uses two examples. One's on Vancouver Island, the other one's in West Kelowna. They're taking it non-peak times, so spring season, when you wouldn't see high levels of traffic in either one of those locations. So staff felt that it wasn't a representative comparison to what we would experience in Revelstoke in July and August, and what that would do to that particular location. The other indication it gives is that there's opportunities there for cycling and pedestrian access to that property. Experience in that area with anybody from Revelstoke is that we don't see a lot of cyclists and pedestrians there during July and August with the
Especially at lunchtime.
especially at lunch. The other component of it is we received a referral response from the Ministry of Highways not supporting the variance. So they have significant concerns with parking and availability of parking in and around that area. So they do not support the reduction of parking below what's in the bylaw.
Councilor Brothers.
How does it compare to the Shell situation?
Shell 6 Station is a little different in that it's a much larger site and it has a cumulative parking effect with the hotel, with the motel, excuse me. So there's a much larger area than the current bylaw. It also has an extended area in the back, which allows for overflow parking.
And even then, it's tight. During busy times, it's very, very tight.
These turning radiuses in particular around these islands, their engineer worked very, very hard to get those turning radiuses to work. Manipulating the pump sizes and mechanical size and, to get, so you could turn a fifth wheel or a large vehicle in and get out from the station. We all know that what's drawn on paper is not necessarily happening in the field. Not everybody is the best of driver, so there's going to be some serious congestion issues on the site.
And I just noticed that they're increasing the seating capacity in the store. Is that why we have so much parking and the need for so much parking? Is that?
They have a development permit already in place, so they've been approved for the restaurant size as it is now. They want to increase the number of seats in the restaurant, so expand the seating in the restaurant, which is what's triggered the need for variance. So they already have an approved site plan parking, but they've asked for additional seating without providing additional parking for it.
Well, it's no secret to anybody in the community that this intersection is already a huge problem. This is going to add more congestion to it. It would be nice to have highways coming to the table and helping resolve these problems, because me personally, I think that highways design in the first place is helped create some of these problems. What we're being asked is to reduce the parking stalls, which would be that much more difficult in an already difficult area. And I think that we've got to be finding solutions to fixing this area of the town rather than adding to the compounding the problem. One of the items that Mr. Strachan hasn't brought up is that there is a 15-seat patio that our bylaw does not take into consideration as seats that would calculate parking stalls. So 35-seat patio, reducing the parking in an already tough area. Nobody else has reduced parking in the area as far as I know. And I think that would be setting a bad precedent in an area that's already overly congested. So I am not going to support the variance, and the motion is to deny the variance. Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, I just had one more question of Mr. Strachan, your worship. I had a chance to talk with Dean about this. Whose responsibility is it on the greater issue of traffic? We have a recommendation to not approve this from the Ministry of Transportation. What about our input on the traffic issue outside of this property? Where does that fit?
Well, it's our road.
Yeah.
Quite correct. It's our road. It's something that we need to deal with the ministry cooperatively on addressing. I believe the mayor, as well as Mike Thomas, our civil engineer, are both working with those groups to do that.
So, you know, as much as I would like to bend rules and help out, I think that other areas of the city are more realistic to be looking at things like that. But this one here, there's too many problems here already, and taking away parking would only make it worse. So the motion is to deny the variance and require them to put the amount of parking that we need. And I think, if I remember correctly, talking to Mr. Strachan, is that the requirements that we have are not as, our parking requirements are not as onerous as a lot of communities are. So, any questions on the motion or questions for Mr. Strachan? All those in favor of denying? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Strachan. Where are we? Item F.
Again, I'll recuse myself, this is over the Salisbury Planning Commission.
We should move your chair closer to the door.
Might have to.
So I would then. Okay, I will move the development variance permit application submitted by Peter Humphreys for the property parcel A, SE 140510I of assigned block 60, plan 9504, and lots 7 to 9, block 31, plan 9504, to be varied as per the council agenda. This is to allow for a 5-unit motel development to be approved, subject to the following conditions. The site, landscape, and evaluation plans are to be included with the development variance permit as Schedule A, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the development variance permit once the above noted condition has been satisfied.
Motion by Councillor Duke, we have a seconder, Councillor English. Mr. Solvig, you're going to enlighten us on this?
Thank you, Your Worship. The subject property is located at 1403 Victoria Road. As stated by Councillor Duke, the applicant has applied for a development variance permit and a development permit to develop a proposed 5-unit motel with new landscaping and a freestanding sign with a changeable copy component. There are no concerns, staff concerns with the proposed setback, landscape buffer, or freestanding sign height variances. Staff is also in support of the proposed digital LED copy sign with the restrictions as noted on figure 19. In order to keep the proposed digital sign in line with the general sign bylaw requirements to minimize potential negative impacts and to keep the signage in line with the form and character of the community. Staff's recommendation is for the approval with conditions as read by Councilor Duke.
Comments or questions on the motion, or to Mr. Solvig, Councillor Nixon?
I'm just wondering about this changeable sign, if it's been vetted through the enhancement committee. The enhancement committee's been around for a long, long time and very, very vested in the look of Victoria Street. And remember what Victoria Street looked like in the 1980s. So I agree with everything that he's asking me. I would like to see that sign vetted through the enhancement committee if possible.
Just want to remind Councillor Nixon that there used to be a changeable copy sign up there when Emo had Farwell. So, Councillor Duke.
Thank you, Your Worship. If we were to do that, is that going to then slow down the process of getting this through? Because I'd like to see that particular location in town as currently, I don't want to say it's an eyesore, but getting an upgrade would be a big improvement, and we'd like to see that happen as quickly as possible. And I'm not as worried about a no vacancy signage.
Well, right now we have a motion on the floor to approve with the variances, and unless I see something different and council votes on it, the motion is to approve. So, Councillor Nixon.
So if vote goes through, fine, but if not, I will take the motion.
There you go. Councillor Orlando.
Your Worship, I had a chance to talk to Mr. Stratton about this, and I think it's a good adaptive use for building. Perhaps an interim use, who knows, but we're taking something and we're doing something with a big building right now, and I think that's a good thing. And really what I perceive we were put here to do as a new council is to try and find solutions and find ways forward with things, and we have some difficulties because you're changing the use of the building from a supermarket or a market to a motel, and that's where a lot of these technical things come in. Maybe that's something to look to in the future as we develop our OCP, but for now I see a solution-oriented direction here, and I'm supportive of it.
Okay. And I agree with Councillor Duke that it's going to clean up the entrance of the community, so I'm going to vote in favor, and I'm looking forward to this development moving forward. Is there any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Motion passes. Councilor Nixon voted against. Thank you. Where are we as far as,
We're in the middle of this motion.
I talked about our council that's sitting outside, is it,
No, she has-
you stay on, okay, sorry.
I'll continue on here and move that the development permit application submitted by Peter Humphreys for the property parcel ASE 140510I of assigned block 60, plan 9504, and lot 7 to 9, block 31, plan 9504, 1403 Victoria Road West, be approved subject to the following conditions. The approval and issuance of development variance permit DVP 2014-10 confirm from the Ministry of Environment the site is compliant with the applicable contaminated site legislation requirements. The owner is to provide a landscape estimate and security in the amount of 125% of the estimated value. The site plans, landscaping plans, cross-sections, elevations, renderings, and material/designs are to be included with the development permit as Schedule A, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the development permit once the above noted conditions have been satisfied.
Motion by Councilor Duke, seconded by Councilor English. Nothing else coming up here?
Nope.
We're good? So it's just questions on the motion. Comments? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Councilor Nixon, opposed? Thank you. We're on that 9G.
Ongoing here. Oh, yes,
Just,
All right, 9G, I'll move that the development application submitted by Mount Baby Brewery Co. for the construction of a new brewery facility on Lot 7, Plan 12148, 2155 Oak Drive be approved, subject to the following conditions. The applicant is to provide a landscaping estimate and security in the amount of 125% of the estimated value, and the site landscape and elevation plans are to be included with the development permit as Schedule A, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the development permit once the above noted conditions have been satisfied.
motion by Councilor Duke, seconded by Councilor Nixon. Discussion on the motion. And, Stratton, are you putting anything up on this one?
Thank you, motion. As noted, this is the development permit. The zoning text amendment recently was approved by council, allowing for the use to be developed on the site. This is the next phase in their process to begin construction, which is the development permit. So they've applied for the development permit with the design that only utilizes one portion of the property, allowing for a significant portion of the property to remain undeveloped, which will leave it in a good position aesthetically with a view from the roadway. And the design provides a good view from internally as well as externally. The design includes a parking lot adequate for their use, as well as turnarounds and so forth for emergency services. Thank you, Your Worship.
Comments or questions from council?
This is a comment. It's just an exciting thing to see moving forward, so the brewery can have some more capacity.
Brewery capacity is a good thing.
It's a good indicator of good economics.
Is it?
Mhm.
All right. Nice. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Let the brewing begin. Where are we at H?
I'll do that. That the report on Revelstoke Turbine 6 from the Director of Community Economic Development be received as information.
Motion by Councilor Brother, seconded by Councilor Duke. Discussion. Councilor Ramondo.
Yeah, sorry, and Your Worship, just a request for some more information. And I should have done this before, but I was talking to Alan, Mr. Mason today. The timeline for Rev 6, have they come up with any clarifications on that since the announcement of Site C? There's a wide time frame.
Yeah, no, it's a projected timeline. We have another meeting in May, and we started these consultations in 2013, and then they were put off for a couple of years while they had discussion around Site C. BC Hydro are saying that regardless of whether Site C moves ahead or does not move ahead, they are still planning to have turbine 6 installed and operational by 2020, or they'd like to have.
I need a motion for 4.10.
Thank you.
I was just looking through those notes, and you're actually, there's a request in 4.10 that would require a council motion. Alan,
What does it say in 4.10?
what is it saying? Director of Community Development typically represents reports to the city. Council for the process requests authorization from council when decision to be made on the city's behalf. Is that what we're doing?
No, Your Worship, that's just clarifying what Alan's role is. Because so when there is a report or an authorization that the city has to make, he would bring it to council. I don't believe this is asking for a resolution.
Okay, because I thought I'd seen
No, that's correct, yeah, no. It's just anytime we need a decision on anything, or we want some input to hydro that is meaningful, then I would bring that back to council and ask for council's
So the
approval.
motion is just to receive this report. Is there any other comments or questions from council? All those in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move on to the next one, please.
Yes.
9I, that the logging at Mount McPherson report written by the Director of Economic Development on March 12, 2015 be received as information, and one of the options presented be chosen.
Motion by Councilor Brothers, seconded by Councilor English. Discussion on the motion. I'm assuming there's going to be another motion coming after this. Just wanted to clarify that before I call the question. Anybody got any questions on this, comments? All those in favor? Motion is carried. 6.5B, I'm assuming.
6.5B. So you want me to read the two motions in?
No. It's council request that Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations. I'm assuming that's the one that we're talking about. So just start where council requests that the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource
That
Operations.
council would request that the Minister of Forest, Lands and Natural Resources Operations directs ministry staff to organize a meeting between the various parties to discuss a long-term planning process for the area.
I'm assuming that's I'm looking for a seconder, Councilor Nixon. Discussion on the motion. Who would like to start? You guys weren't fast enough, huh? Councilor Orlando, go ahead. I'll come in at the end.
Okay. I think there are a few people in the gallery here on this particular issue, and it has been a big one for the community. I support B, as read by Councilor Brothers, and thank you for the report to Mr. Mason. A lot of councillors here have been to a lot of meetings over the past couple of months, and have met with a lot of stakeholders. I've learned a lot. I think everyone has learned a lot about forest policy and how it all works out there in the woods. The main reason for myself supporting this, and although it might seem a little underwhelming at this point, is that we have time. The decision on what's going to happen up there, as I understand it, through BCTS is coming in August or September, somewhere around then, so we have time to work. I see this as a natural next step to take this. What I've learned is that under the...
reminds residents that open air burning
Sorry, guys.
No worries. What I've learned is that under the current sort of forest rules is there's not a long-term plan.
I missed that.
Want me to repeat that one more time?
Yeah.
Is there's not a lot of sorry, there's not a lot of planning, long-term planning. You can't put a plan on a map and say, here's what we're gonna do. So that's really at the core of what people are seeking, is some sort of planning, some sort of way of deciding what we're gonna do. And from a lot of the stakeholders, what we've heard is this: we need to go to the Ministry of Forests and Lands and ask for that. So I think this is a really good step. I think there are other options we can pursue, but this is the next one to take it to. One of the things that I've said all along is we really need to try and focus on the moderate voices in this. We have a lot of different values that we all respect as a community, and I think we really need to find a way to get through this together. I think we're on the right track to do that, and I think this is the next step towards doing this, so I will support that.
Councillor English?
I'll be happy to support this as well. I've had a lot of people contacting me since the reports have come out. I, like Councillor Orlando, have spent a lot of time in meeting and have learned a lot about forest policy going forward. Not to say that forestry isn't important, but it's nice that there's so many stakeholders that have come and helped me to understand what's going on, as well as the stakeholders that use the area for recreation. Like Councillor Orlando, really getting the minister involved, I think will benefit everyone as a way to keep communication open. And I think, like Aaron said as well, we have time, and this is something that I'm happy to support.
Councillor Burley?
Yeah, I too have learned a lot in the last little while in these various meetings, and one of the things that I did learn is that you know, there once was, about 15 years ago, a process whereby the ministry took an active role and the communities took an active role in planning logging activities and that type of thing, and that has sort of gone by the wayside. And I think it's something that we as a community can take a leadership role in encouraging the ministry, not only from a recreational point of view, but also from a logging point of view, to get involved in this again. We surely are not the only community who is going to be involved in this. And I think it's really important that we go to the ministers, because they're the ones who have control over this. We're just a player, we're just a facilitator. So we need the ministers, the various ministers involved, to get involved and say, well, how do we deal with this issue? Paying heed to all of the stakeholders and the importance of all of the stakeholders. So I think this is a first step. I think it's sort of a combination step of not only getting the ministries involved, but also having the ministries facilitate the various groups getting together to talk about what we do with this situation.
I think that there is no question the importance of forestry in the community, and the idea is that if other values are getting the recognition that they deserve, especially in this area, it shouldn't be at the expense of any of the forestry companies. And I think that has to be made abundantly clear, not only to the community, but to the minister as well. And the companies that are involved have done what they're legally entitled to do. We're saying, and the community is saying, that values are higher in this area, therefore it requires a higher amount of consultation with the public. And where the companies can work around those concerns in the community, I think that most of them would do it, and they would do it voluntarily. But again, I want to stress that forestry is important, and we as a council and I think as a community we do not want the forestry companies not being whole over this thing. When I was in Victoria a couple months back over Trans-Canada Highway issues, I did run into Minister Thompson in the hallway, and he's well informed on McPherson. He's waiting for the community to decide what should be happening. I was involved with most of the meetings that we had here in Revelstoke with the companies, and again, it's to the point where we're asking the minister to step in and require more consultation. And if, I've already talked with Dr. Battersby, and if it requires that myself and Dr. Battersby make a trip to Victoria, he's prepared to do that. But the bottom line is, the community's come out very vocal and very strong that this area requires more consultation, and with this motion here, the council's requesting that and agreeing with it. Councillor English and then Councillor Nixon.
I would just really like to also thank Mr. Mason for facilitating all the meetings that I was a part of. I think he did a fabulous job bringing all the stakeholders to the table and starting some communication between everyone. Thank you very much, Alan. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Councillor Nixon.
Just further in our packages, we have a letter from Community Futures, and perhaps we can make that second motion on their recommendations that come through in our letter as well, about the community forest license.
Yes. Motion is on the floor. Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Do you want another motion now, Your Worship, or part of
If you're so inclined, Councillor Nixon, that would be fine by me.
in your packages, councillors, there's a letter from Community Futures. This would be an opportune time for the city to consider applying for a community forest license for the areas in question, and there are many benefits to this, and we'll just leave it at that.
And that's a motion. I'm just trying to find out where it's going to look at the.
Your correspondence.
And that was a motion, and seconded by Councillor English. Discussion on the motion.
Just if you and Dr. Casey are going to Victoria, it would be the opportune time to bring that up.
And I guess the way that I see this process unfolding is, I think that we started off the right way, and I still think that we're on track for the right thing. Is that we met with the companies that are involved. We're writing to the minister to request more consultation, and we're slowly progressing up the ladder to take this issue as far as we as a community can take it. And I think that the community forest license idea is the last resort, because again, it's but in all those steps, ensuring that the ministry knows that we don't want this on the backs of the local companies, but there is important recreation issues at stake here, and we want those protected as much as we want the forestry companies protected. So the community forest license, again, I think is at the end of that road. Councillor Orlando.
Your Worship, I agree. My first comment was time frame. We have some time, we've got all summer. And I see this as taking the next step and not prejudging what we're going to do after that. And I think that certainly as part of our discussions, we're well aware of this, but I think one step at a time, and we see what we can do, and we listen to, we take the widest option available to us. There might, if we can't prejudge what's going to happen, we're going to go to Victoria and talk to someone. If that doesn't go well, then maybe this is a consideration, but I think there also have been several other options potentially identified during the exploration, and I think this is maybe getting ahead of that at this point. So that's my view.
Councillor Briggs.
Yeah, I agree with that approach, and the only thing I would say and add to that is just to I guess, emphasize a sense of urgency in moving on the consultation process. I think that because my understanding is that BCPS is intending or has the opportunity to log in 2016, which is just a year away, that, because there are so many stakeholders, we really need to move on this diligently, and I'm in favor, if you need to go sooner rather than later with Dr. Battersby to visit the powers that be in Victoria, I think we should move on it more quickly than not.
I guess I have a little bit of concern about putting a motion to go after a community forest when we haven't exhausted all of the other avenues that are in front of us, and I don't want anybody to perceive that this is a threat from the community, because I would rather that they came to the table willingly, maybe kicking and screaming a little bit, that's okay, but willingly coming and going through what the community would like to see. And so I would like to, and I can't, tabling the motion, we put it off for one, but I guess even though I support the motion at a different time and place, today, right now, I'm gonna vote against the motion because I think that it's a little premature, and I would rather have the options that we're going to pursuing to be our first option. So, Councillor Duke.
Yeah, I agree with that, Your Worship, because at this point, I'd like to develop a relationship between the two parties, and if we go out there and we say we're gonna just take this and make it a community forest, that doesn't set the tone for a partnership in the beginning, so maybe down the road if that needs to happen, but right now I think I would not support the motion.
How are you feeling, Councillor Nixon, about this?
Oh, I'm fine with that. I just think we need to be open about it being part of a solution.
I think everybody's well aware.
Yeah.
Would you like to carry on with your motion?
No, I'm fine. I have a seconder.
Okay, I'm just,
If it's defeated, it's defeated.
Okay, Councillor Orlando, just as an additional comment, as far as I'm aware, there's at least three total different regulatory frameworks that you could go with if in the event that we're not successful in a Long Beach to Victoria. I don't want to prejudge right now which one would be the best one, so that's another discussion. And if we could also have a timeline on when we're able to get market out to Victoria or get it, that's important, because we're not talking seasons here, we're talking months or weeks here.
I think it depends on the response to the letter that we're already sending. So we have a, Mr. Mason.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in procedures, but my understanding is if the motion comes to the table and is debated, even if it's turned down, we then have to wait for a certain length of period, I believe it's 6 months, before you can bring the same motion back. Say you go down to Victoria and things don't go well, then you have to wait 6 months before you discuss the idea of a community forest again. So it may be better to withdraw the motion and keep it in your back pocket rather than...
Or amend the motion that if all the other avenues that we're currently pursuing...
I will amend the motion that it be at this council table that we've approved, we're going to have it in our back pocket.
Can we put that in the motion, that I could have this in my back pocket? Is that
Well, you can use your own words.
I just want to be crystal clear on the advice here. I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot on technicalities. So I'm deferring this to staff.
Well, that makes sense to me now that you bring it up, is that if you defeat the motion as it is, we can't bring it back to the table for 6 months. But I can bring it back.
After 30 days or
After 30 days?
within 30 days.
All these rules. Sorry?
So the two councillors that voted in the majority bring it back as well,
Within 30 days or after 6 months?
after 30 days.
After 30 days.
Or
The
is
two
it
that made the
within-
motion can bring it back.
Should we not be sending the...
But you could amend the motion. You could amend the motion to support that resolution in principle.
In principle,
Yeah.
that he goes to Victoria with all the tools that he needs to do the job.
In principle, with such approach not to be taken until the others have been exhausted.
We won't charge you when he says what we're going to do.
Or you can withdraw the motion.
Now it's a good idea to table the motion, bring it back to the next council meeting when staff have reviewed what we should be doing on this thing.
I'm
Okay?
fine with that. I will table my motion.
Okay, motion is tabled, no discussion. All in favor of tabling the motion to the next meeting? All right, where are we? J. Mr. Councilor Brothers?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Motion that staff be directed to write a letter to BC Hydro to congratulate them on the renovations to their office building in the industrial park and to encourage them to explore opportunities to locate more of their professional staff from the Vancouver area to Revelstoke to work in the renovated office space.
Motion by Councilor Brothers, seconded by Councilor Duke. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Against? Motion's carried. MK.
Okay, then I'll do economic development. Okay. That staff be directed to make the planning and development of a multi-use trail from the south end of the Kingsbury Bridge to Revelstoke Mountain Resort a top priority for trail development in the community.
Motion by Councilor Brothers, seconded by Councilor Duke. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Nixon.
I think this is an awesome idea, but I suggest the staff and council please watch the video made by Carl Jost last year on biking south of the Kingsbury Bridge in June. It's a swimming episode.
Councilor Lando.
At the Parks and Rec Committee this morning, we were firming up our long-term planning, and one of the initiatives we want to bring forward is trail spines. I think this is a good initiative, but I think it needs to be part of a larger plan. So my idea is to refer this to that process and see about, we do have some money budgeted for the start of the trail planning, and to include this in that larger planning framework. I don't want to approach it on a bit-by-bit basis. And yeah, I'm down there a lot with my dog, and it gets wet.
So what you're suggesting is a friendly amendment to also refer this to which planning process?
I'll refer it to the Parks and Rec Committee.
Okay, so what we're doing is the motion is to approve and to refer to the Parks and Rec planning process. You had your hand up?
Yeah, in that regard, just carrying on, it was, in our discussions, we determined that there are so many people in the community who have so much input and potential input in this process. They have knowledge and are experts in the trail area around Revelstoke, that this would be a unique opportunity to have one of our task forces tasking this particular issue to determine where we're going with it. So we started those discussions in the Parks and Rec Committee, and I think we're moving along quite well with that.
Well, I was part of the original getting the Kingsbury Bridge in place, and I think that the whole reason why I was involved at the very start was because of the vision that's needed to tie the trails in, tie the resort to the town, make this walking, cross country, whatever has to happen. I think that the other opportunities that we should be keeping in mind, and I've already talked to staff about, is extending it on this side of the river and having trail access on the CP rail right-of-way track, that because that's what that bridge was used for. And you look at it from an aerial photo, it's a straight line right across that bridge into town, and I think that this is a great addition to the community that we should all be working towards. Motion to approve and to refer to Parks and Rec Planning. Is there any more comments or discussion from council? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.
I will do the next one as well.
Sure.
That staff be directed to make a request to BC Hydro for a contribution of $250,000 for the development of affordable rented housing as part of the Revelstoke Turbine 6 mitigation measures.
Motion by Councilor Brothers, seconded by Councilor Nixon. I guess I don't mind starting this off with a few comments, because Affordable Housing Society built a duplex. The duplex became reality because BC Hydro was doing Turbine 5, was it Turbine 5? Alan, in Revelstoke?
Yep.
So Turbine 5 was happening. A whole bunch of federal employees came into town right at the same time that the resort was ramping up. They rented they had a huge impact on the community for rental accommodation. When we pointed that out to BC Hydro at the time, they quite generously made a contribution to the community of $250,000 to be put towards rental affordable housing, which is how the duplex through the Affordable Housing Society was built. We are now going through the next phase of the affordable housing with, and there's other items that are going to be coming up, with our 12-unit townhouse development, which is going to be next to the ambulance station and the Housing Society's current duplex. There is some issues with balancing out the budget and keeping the rents as affordable as possible. So what we're trying to do here is talk to BC Hydro, who is very concerned about affordable housing in the community, and there will be a mitigation process starting with Turbine 6, and we're just seeing if there's an opportunity to expedite that mitigation process and make a big impact on the current affordable housing development that is being worked on. So I'm going to support this, and I'm hoping that council will support it, and I'm also hoping that BC Hydro will support this. Is there any more comments or discussion from council on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Just following up, I can do the next one as well. That staff be directed to waive all fees for permitting and servicing related to the affordable housing development on Oscar Street.
Motion by Councilor Brother, seconded by Councilor Duke. Would you guys like me to talk about this one?
Carry on.
The motion is, I think, is a little bit misleading, because what we're actually asking for is the city to consider waiving the permit fees. The tendering process that we've just gone through has all the numbers coming out for the budget is about $160,000 to $200,000 over budget. We're looking at every opportunity. Talking with the Director of Finance, this is not a direct cost to the city where the city will be writing a check. This is the permitting process. The services are in the budget for, we will be paying for our water and sewer hookups and off-site things like drainage. So there's $125,000 in the budget to pay for that. This is for filling out building permit fees and going through the process, the approval process during the building phase, which is more of a staff time and not, it's an indirect cost to the city, not a direct. City's not going to be writing a check for whatever the amount is, going to be $60,000 or whatever the amount is. But again, what the society is trying to do is everything in its power to avoid raising the rents so that it can balance the budget. We're trying to keep the Housing Society's project as affordable for the community as possible. And this was a recommendation from the Housing Society at their meeting last night, and I'm not entirely happy that we're asking for this, but this is where we are, and to keep the project affordable, I would support this and encourage council to support it. Councilor Brothers.
I as well support this. A lot of time and energy and work has been put into to this development. We're this close to accomplishing it. And there's been some ups and downs and some bumps in the road, as any project has. And what we're trying to do is find a way to finish off the project by finding money as easily as possible. And that's so the previous motion that was made with respect to BC Hydro and this motion here, it doesn't, as His Worship said, it doesn't impact on any outlay of cost by the city. It's just a waiving of fees. So I support the motion.
And I just want to remind council and the community that there is a $1.48 million grant through BC Housing and Columbia Basin Trust that is in the works on this, so it is going to end up being just over a $3 million project, and with 12 units of affordable housing, I think that it will make well, it's going to make an impact on 12 families' lives, and but I think it's a little bit farther reaching than that, and again, this is what we are requesting to keep this project affordable. Questions from council? All those in favor? Thank you, the motion is carried. Where are we? Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program. Trevor, would you like to do that?
That the 2014 Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program, CAIRP, public report be received as information.
Motion by Councilor English, seconded by Councilor Nixon. Discussion on the motion, Councilor Nixon.
This is a good news item. This is a legacy left behind by previous Premier Gordon Campbell. We were the first government body in North America to bring this in. And it's a good thing to hear about Quebec and Ontario on the news today, that they're talking about a cap and trade. Well, this is a much more straightforward way of trying to reduce our emissions. And I think Penny Page Britton does a very good job for the city of putting this report together. It's a good news story.
Any comments from council? Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, I meant to do this before, your worship, before the meeting, but I just ran out of time. There's a few items in there with financial implications like parkland DCCs, GPS fleet monitoring, renewable energy stuff, and I just am a bit unclear on all of these proposed for 2015, how they integrate with all our budget process. And
Councilor Nixon.
I think maybe council could have a bit of a teaching session from Penny Page Britton on the whole report. She's very, very.
We'll have a CARIP.
Yeah.
Does that work for you, Councilor Orlando?
Sure.
Okay. Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Asset management grant application.
I'd be happy to continue your
Okay,
motion.
thank you.
That the grant application for $10,000 from UBCM Asset Management Planning Program for Road Asset Management Plan Development be approved.
Motion by Councilor English, seconded by Councilor Nixon. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Nixon?
No, this is just another good news item out of UBCM. They've been granted $1.5 million from the province to allocate for asset management planning programs, so we're happy to take some of that money and use it.
Any other comments? All those in favor? Motion's carried, thank you. Kate?
how do you want me to deal with this? This is a lot of verbiage here.
Well,
Four
the
different
conditions
things.
are the same, so don't read the conditions, just do the application.
Okay.
Sorry?
Just
Subject to the
Subject
condition.
to
It says that.
conditions. Okay, so, so item P, I move that the application from the Revelstoke Derailers for a public special event be approved for roller derby belts on Saturday, May 2nd, Saturday, June 13th, and Saturday, July 25th, 2015, from 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. at the Revelstoke Forum located at 510th Street, subject to the stated condition.
Moved by Councilor Orlando, seconded by Councilor English. Discussion on the motion.
All of these ones are about the same in that we review them, their liquor licenses.
These are like
Pretty
beer
straightforward.
garden
They're
licenses.
all
Yep.
used.
Oh, good news, yeah. So we're getting increased capacity for the brewery. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you.
And next one, I move that the application from the Revelstoke Forest Workers Society for a public special event be approved for Revelstoke Timber Days on Saturday, September 12th, 2015, from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Centennial Park located at 1016 Centennial Park, subject to the stated conditions.
Motion by Councilor Orlando, seconded by Councilor English. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried.
The next one, I move that the application from Revelstoke Football Club men's soccer for a public special event be approved for the Big Bear Classic Soccer Tournament on Friday, June 26, 2015, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday, June 27, 2015, from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sunday, June 28, 2015, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Queen Elizabeth Soccer Field located at 219 9th Street, subject to the stated conditions.
Seconded by Councillor English. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion's carried.
And the last one, move that the application from the Vintage Car Club of Canada for a public special event be approved for the Mountain Paradise Show and Shine Dance on Saturday, June 13th, 2015, from 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. at the Revelstoke Community Center, 600 Campbell Avenue, subject to stated conditions.
Moved by Councillor Orlando, seconded by Councillor English. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Of course, sorry. Yes, correspondence, item B is a City Hall renovations email. Not to consider.
Yeah, so this is speaking a little bit to Donald Luxton and him doing some architect work on the exterior of the City Hall. We spoke about this actually probably for about 30 minutes at the Heritage Committee. Was it last night, night before the City Hall? So the Heritage Committee fully intends to have input from Don Luxton on this extra renovation. It'll come through that committee back to council.
Councillor Orlando. Councillor Nixon next.
And it's my understanding that council will receive a report in the next little while related to heritage issues that could pertain to City Hall.
Mr. Your Worship, we have been requested to prepare a report on the City Hall. We've been investigating the reintroduction of a heritage registry.
That's the one.
Sure.
Yes.
If you wish, Your Worship, I can speak briefly to that process.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Your Worship. And as was reviewed with the Heritage Advisory Commission last evening at the meeting, the Heritage Registry was inadvertently removed from the official committee plan in 2009. The process to reintroduce it back into the OCP is a complicated process. It requires not only several bylaw amendments, but also the approval of the property owners themselves to be put in place on a registry. The registries, I think, have there's a misunderstanding as to what the authority associated with the registry is and what a registry does or does not do. City Hall still remains on the federal heritage registry. It's still registered as a heritage property. What that does is it records publicly the statement of significance, so the heritage context of the building is available to the greater community and the greater nationally is available for people to access. And that's the intent of a heritage registry, is to provide information and provide acknowledgement and education on heritage values within the community. It doesn't offer a lot of strong tools for protection. So that component comes through other things such as bylaw. So what a heritage registry would do for City Hall is require a heritage alteration permit. That process is essentially redundant. Council would have to approve any modifications that would be done to the building, would then apply for a heritage alteration permit, and then would approve the road permit. So it's already happening. The process is already there, whether the registry is not. But it is an important acknowledgement of heritage value and a tracking of that for the future. Staff intend to bring forward a report to council recommending it be reviewed with the Heritage Commission sometime later this summer.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess, oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Councillor Nixon.
No, I just wanted to get clarity out into the community that Mr. Luxton is an award-winning heritage researcher. He is not an architect, and that's why he couldn't be hired to complete any jobs for his City Hall.
Well, I guess with the last election and the City Hall renovations that have been going on, I think that City Hall is in the spotlight or fishbowl, depending on how you want to look at it as far as the community is concerned, and I think that's a good thing. This is a community that's very concerned about its heritage roots. City Hall is one of those key buildings. I'm more concerned about going through a process that deals with the building properly and making sure that it stays the showcase in the community that it is. And I think that input from people like Mr. Luxton, the Heritage Commission, Enhancement Committee, City Council, and staff, of course. I think that the process that we're going to go through, I think will only enhance the City Hall. This council has basically put a slowdown on City Hall renovations through the budget process, and that's going to give us some breathing room and some time to make sure that the next phase, if we're going to do something with City Hall, it's going to be done right, and it's going to be done in such a way that council staff and the community are going to be proud of the end result. So I'm not as overly concerned about the Heritage Registry as I am concerned about the process that I know that we're going to be going through, especially with the time that this council has left sitting around this table, and I'm looking forward to the City Hall renovation unfolding slowly and meticulously and properly, and I think that's what's going to happen. So that's all I have to say on that. Where are we on this thing? So there's no motion on this email. I think that it should be taken by staff, and it should make the go-rounds of where it's appropriate with whether it's Heritage Commission and Enhancement Committee, but it'll be taken into consideration as this process unfolds, as I'm sure a lot of input is going to happen on the whole City Hall renovation. Is that fair enough? Unless somebody wants a motion. Okay. Also, local food initiative request. Councillor Nixon.
Councillor Orlando, it's my turn. Can I please be on this group?
Are you making that motion,
I would
Councillor?
like to make the motion that Councillor Nixon be appointed to the Revelstoke Local Food Initiative.
And Councillor Duke seconds it. See, they're learning. They know exactly what to do. You have a comment on this, Councillor Nixon?
I just have a comment on this group. This local food initiative is separating out into their own society from the North Columbia Environmental Society in a very pragmatic and focused way. This group walks around town. They carry a big hoe and little tiny shared seeds. That you can go to the library and take part in their shared seed library. These are a great group of young people in our community.
I'd just like to second that. They are an incredible group of people, very creative, and we should encourage whatever they do.
Local food, local brewery. I'm getting excited. Is there any more discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Nixon, for railroading that appointment. Next item we have is the Jacobson Ford sign, and there's a letter to that. This letter was sent to me, and I requested that it come to council. The council will remember when the sign bylaw was brought forward shortly after we were sworn in. I had some concerns about some things being added, and it's things like this. I think that the Jacobson Ford sign was taken down. I think that they did and it was taken down for the right reason. But they have come back. They are willing to fill out the sign permit. They've taken this sign and they've upgraded it to a better standard, which we like to see here in Revelstoke. I think that there's an opportunity for signs like these in certain areas and for certain businesses. It's not something that is going to be wide open for the whole community because they don't fit in. This is a car lot's version of a sidewalk sign, which are throughout the downtown core. And I'm bringing it back. I do have a proper motion that if council is supportive of allowing this. I think that it is supportable. And I'll hand it over to Mr. Strachan to make some
My
comments.
worship, just very briefly, as the mayor has indicated, the subject property had a changeable sign, at one time was portable. It became permanent last summer. It was located in the city boulevard. The property line is adjacent to the inside of the sign. Staff requested that it be removed. It was brought forward to council at that time. Council endorsed that and asked that the sign be removed. The property owner complied at that time and has now come back to council and requested reconsideration of that decision. The sign is located on the city's right of way, so in general principle, city staff have concern with any structure that's located on our city right of way. However, as was noted, this specific location doesn't create a significant concern for safety. Thank you, Worship.
If council would support this, the condition that the staff would like to see is that it be approved subject to the owner entering into an encroachment agreement with the city, including third-party liability insurance, which is no different than what we do with sidewalk signs downtown. So I brought this back. I would encourage council to support it. I would also like staff to take this under advisement, and at some point when they're not overwhelmed with work, look at the process that would be would need to be done to allow these signs. And I'm thinking that where these signs make sense is arterial routes coming into town. Highway 23, Big Eddy Road, Victoria Road. Certain businesses like these signs, they have value in them, they use them. Other businesses would not use these signs. So is anybody, Councillor Burger?
Your worship, I support your motion, and I also support the addendum you said that you would ask the staff to make some suggestions or recommendations as to where we could place signs such as this, so that we have some guidance, or the community has some guidance.
And that would be done in conjunction with like the enhancement committee and maybe administration or whoever the staff think are appropriate that should be involved. I have a motion on the floor and I need a seconder. Councillor English. I'm looking for any discussion or comments or questions on the motion. Councillor Nixon and Councillor Orlando.
Just again, the enhancement committee, I'd really like to know how they feel about this and how this ties in Mr. Mason, if he could tell us what the other Victoria signs that are on the other side of the road, because they paid quite a bit for those signs.
Mr. Mason.
Okay, so the signs on the other side of Victoria Road are directional signs. And when they were built, which preceded my time with the city, the intent was that they directed people to businesses that were off Victoria Road. So I'm pretty sure I'm right. None of these signs advertise businesses that have a location on Victoria Road, because most of the businesses are on the right side of the street if you're coming into town, and they always had the ability to put their sign up on their own property, subject to approval from the Development Services Department. So none of the signs on the left side of the road promote businesses that are on Victoria Road. They all promote businesses that are off Victoria Road, and the reason we did that, I think, was that, again, before I came to town, Victoria Road, I understand, was a real dog's breakfast. The sign's pretty ugly. Council wanted to tidy it up, and so that's why we went with the attractive brick signs, and we get lots and lots of compliments from tourists on the quality of those signs.
Councillor Orlando.
The sign issue with Jacobson was before my time at council, so I don't have a lot of background on this. However, it's my understanding there's no sign there now. If somebody wants to bring a sign forward, the standard process is to go to City Hall and file an application. Is there anything preventing Jacobson Ford from doing that?
They would have to do that.
Your Worship, because it's on our city boulevard, they would not apply for a sign permit. The sign permit can only be granted for a sign located on their property. So that's why they need to seek approval to have it is through council directly, because we don't have the authority to issue a sign permit on our
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood that part. Mr. Tony, do you have something else to add to that?
Exactly that.
Okay. Councilor Lando, do you have more comments?
Then if this was a request for some sort of an exception to that rule, and sorry, I don't know the details of what's allowed for signs and these kinds of signs, I would really like to see a staff report accompanying this request. As far as I'm concerned, I see this as a first time request before me. I know there's a background and history to it. I was not part of that, and I'd like to see this have a clean process as far as the application goes.
I think it's pretty simple. They put a sign up without a permit because they couldn't get one, and it was ordered taken away, which they complied with. We had a whole new sign bylaw, and I wanted to talk about the sign bylaw, about putting things like this in. Council, if you guys would remember, didn't want to delay the sign bylaw, and I relented to that because I didn't want to delay it as well, but this was not included. I look at this sign, there's a couple of things that I think that they've done a good job by putting the cement pad, by putting the heavy timbers on the outside and making it fit in with the community. It's not obstructing any sight lines, which I think is extremely important. So it's an opportunity that the business community, certain businesses like these kinds of signs, and I think that it's up to City Hall to listen to the businesses when it comes to what signs are important to them, rather than people that don't know as much about signage or the importance, telling them what they should and shouldn't be doing. So I think there's all kinds of reasons why it's supportable. I think there are some reasons why it's not, but I'm requesting that I go forward. Councilor Brothers and then Councilor Duke.
And the only thing that I'd like to confirm, again, in public, Dean, that Mr. Strachan, is that this sign, if we needed that space, if the city needed that space again, we would have the right to take it back or whatever, let's say for expanding the road or doing something, and so I think you've given me some comfort level that that in fact is the case.
If there was a need for the city infrastructure to expand, or there was a safety issue, if there's some other need for the city to have the sign removed, that's part of the agreement. The city would retain that right to have the sign removed, with due notification, of course, if that was necessary as part of it.
Councilor Duke.
The background of this story, a little bit, it was kind of messy and it left a really bad taste in Jacobson Forest about their business, our community. I don't see the sign as being anything negative. They brought it back. It's an improved sign, and this is, I think, at the council table right now, we can say to them, we're happy to embrace it and help your business out in the community growth. So thank you for being here.
Any more discussion on the motion? Councilor Nixon.
This sign got discussed at Economic Development Commission, and I just see Economic Development Commission doing development's job, so I'm just wondering why this wasn't discussed with development.
Because the letter was sent directly to me.
Okay,
The request was sent to me.
so you took it too?
I just,
Oh, because it was in the March minutes of the Economic Development.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I was at that meeting.
Okay.
I spoke to.
Because it belongs at development.
Mhm.
It
And what I said at the development meeting was that I'd like to get it as quickly as possible, their sign back. Yeah, that's what I said.
Councilor Lando.
I guess my comment is I'm not talking about a sign, I'm talking about process. I'm talking about process here. Do we want to spend the next 4 years adjudicating every sign application that comes before us with someone who's got an idea of where their sign goes? I don't want to be doing that. I'm well aware of the background of the controversy related to this one, and I know that the public sentiment is the community is that's the big deal. I get that stuff, but we need to adhere to a legal framework and the process that's there, and I don't see this going through the process. I can't support it being done this way. There's other ways to do it. We might have to wait a week or we might have to wait a month, but that's my understanding of this at this point in terms of the process. And I could be wrong, but as far as all my background is that's my understanding.
Mr. Strachan.
Your Worship, I would recommend council consider it exactly as you noted, and exactly as Councilor Nixon previously noted, is there's a need to look at the corridor with other larger groups, including the enhancement committee, and look at some of the design guidelines on that, and council certainly could put forward a resolution requesting that staff begin that process. There is a neighborhood plan for that corridor proposed in your budget for 2017. Certainly this would be a good start on that process and would be incorporated into the official community plan process later this year. The second part of that is there's a request to look at a delegation bylaw for sign permits, so that some types of sign permits can be approved by staff, certain level of variance to be done by staff, so that signs such as we saw with the Petro Canada with the small emblem that extended above the canopy could be approved without having to go through a council process and therefore have it reduced to be. So there is the ability in the Local Government Act to have some of those components delegated to staff. So there is a proposal to bring forward with a development procedure bylaw, also a delegation bylaw, so that essentially the wheels of council don't get clogged in minor applications. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with Councillor Orlando's comments. I guess what I look at this table, and the reason why I'm bringing it here, is that sometimes you see something that's happened that is not, in my mind, is not being done properly. It's not being done with the end user in mind. And it's fine to say, well, let's have a process and let's put it off the table. And then 2 months and 3 months and 6 months go by and another year go by. Well, that's what we're here for, and that's part of our job, is that if we don't think that something is right, there's an opportunity for us to take it to this table and change it. And part of what I'm recommending is that this goes back and this be approved, and then the process starts. I guess the question is that who has a problem with the sign and the way it looks in the location? And I'm not really hearing a lot of concern. But there's an opportunity to do something that I think is to do the right thing and to help a business out at the same time re-looking at the sign bylaw and seeing if there's an opportunity there by going through process. Do I think that we should put this on the back burner for another 6 months and while we do that? I don't think so. We're here, we're elected to come to this table to make decisions and make decisions on what we think is the right thing to do. I think that this is the right thing to do, and that's why I bring it here. Councillor Brothers had her hand up, and then Councillor Nixon.
I'm a bit confused because I don't quite understand what the process is. If it's just a question of going back to committees to discuss whether we should do it or we shouldn't do it, I agree with His Worship. I think it's a reasonably simple decision for council to make. And I'd rather not see it go through, you know, a lengthy process for 6 months again. But I'm a little confused, Mr. Strachan. What would be the process that we should follow?
Your Worship, what I would recommend is that council deal with this one specific issue as the mayor has indicated, and then look at the bigger picture of the entire corridor and look at it in its entirety. Not one specific property, but its entirety, as to what the enhancement committee, the advisory planning commission, what the community really wants to see on that corridor, and what the businesses want to see on that corridor. So that would be the larger study, would not be on a specific property, but on the corridor itself.
Sorry, isn't that what His Worship, the addendum that His Worship indicated that he wanted the staff to take a look at?
Well, basically, it's, you know, Mr. Strachan is way more articulate, is that I do want to have other entities looking at this and giving us advice if we're going to be amending the sign bylaw, which, again, just to remind council, was what I wanted to do back in December, but council wanted the sign bylaw going through after the amount of work that had been done on it. So this is one of the trials of approving a sign bylaw, is that it's always going to be a living document. It's always going to be changing, and there's always opportunities to do that. And anyways, I still don't see a big deal. Councillor Nixon.
This is volunteer week. We have some really great people on that announcement committee. I have a lot of respect for them. I worked with them for 3 years, and if Mr. Mason could tell us when the next meeting is for the announcement committee, if we could just go there and just get their blessing.
Well, we usually call these meetings as required, so we don't have a date set, but we could have one pretty quickly if council wanted us to go down that road.
Sorry?
How are you feeling last year?
Well, again, it's, I'm trying to right what I think was something that was done wrong by City Hall. And how it happened doesn't matter, it's where we are today. And they know that they didn't do things right, Jacobson Ford, but I guess it's, look at what the product is. I think that they've done, they've gone out of their way and they spend money on doing it properly, except for the paperwork part, and that's the part that I'm trying to rectify. It's, you know, like I said, if I thought that the sign didn't fit, if I thought they didn't do a good job fixing it, if I thought that where the location, if it hindered sight lines, it's gonna answer it answers all the questions and concerns that I would think that most people would have when they're putting up a sign. And so, you're asking me about it, like, now we're asking other people to call a special meeting to approve, to look at and see if they would approve one sign. And so we're doing the exact same things to other people that Councillor Orlando doesn't want us to do to ourselves. Councillor Orlando.
Well, my caution here is I watched the past council get kicked around on these issues, and what happens with the next sign that gets put up? It's going to be right back at us, being the ones going, well, we did it for those guys. I've seen these council bodies scrape the bottom on sign issues for so many years. I'd like to set a new direction. I'm concerned that we're not setting a good precedent there. We have a new sign bylaw. I need a process. I don't see how a letter of request is something that leads us to a decision at the table at this point. Like, I don't know why this hasn't gone through a development application, or at least a sign application that, like, I don't even know why we need to approve this.
Well, you did. Councillor Strachan. I mean, sorry, Mr. Strachan. I don't want you to know about
Your Worship, the sign bylaw itself is not covered the city right away, quite intentionally. If we covered the city right away signs like Mr. Mason was speaking to, the brick signs, directional signs, street signs, all of these things would then fall into the city bylaw. So it's quite intentionally exempted. So this is not within the permitting process area. It's not on private property. It's not on property off the right of way where a sign permitting process falls in. So as a rule, according to the bylaw, just doesn't allow it, period. So there isn't a process to allow for it, except for council to provide approval through this process directly to allow for it. So it's a very specific one-off approval. It doesn't provide any.
Kind of like a canopy sign for Petro Canada, which is not allowed under the bylaw.
Very similar, yes. Except it's on property, it's a little different, but same idea.
And that's why the variance process.
Because it's not actually it's not on a parcel of land, so you can't have a permit that gets registered on title.
This is one of the few ways that it can come through. Anyways, I think we could keep going on and on and on, and we're scraping the bottom of the barrel on a sign issue, because I think that was your word, wasn't it?
I picture 3 years screaming. I don't want to be seeing that in my future.
What I've said to previous councils is that when the doo-doo is hitting the fan's always pointing at the mayor, so don't worry about it. I'll take it. Is there any more discussion on this motion? Motion is to approve the sign. All those in favor? Against? Motion is carried. It was a good discussion, though. Communications. Youth Advisory Committee meetings. Anybody got any comments on that? Thank you, Dean. Advisory Planning Commission minutes. Item C, Public Art Advisory Committee minutes.
Just your worship, there's some really exciting projects coming out of the Public Art Committee for the Visual Arts Center and for the Visitor Center. There's going to be some great news coming out of that group.
And just following up on that, Councillor Nixon, are we looking at promos that art and
I think that's between you and Councillor New York County colleague, Ms. Danello.
Okay, we done? Revelstoke Advisory on Healthcare Committee minutes.
Just your worship on that, there is a manager from Interior Health that didn't come to the last health meeting, and the message for that manager is cuts were made to the adult daycare program, and they really impact families. And I'll be taking that message back strongly, that they can't be making cuts to a program like the adult daycare program that really, really supports caregivers with people with dementia.
Item E, Parks, Rec, and Culture meeting minutes. Councillor Orlando.
Your worship, I think we concluded our third special meeting today in the Parks Committee, just because we had so much stuff to plow through. We finally, I think, got up to date with where we want to be right now, so we've been working hard and there's lots of good stuff going on there.
With that.
Yeah.
Committee to approve public events minutes, we dealt with that. Also, Admin Industry Partners Communications Committee meeting minutes of March 17th. Any items in there anybody wants to talk about?
Just to ensure while you're away down the street, that with us down the street, sawmills, talking about road closures for safety. So that's moving along.
Committee to approve public events, we dealt with that earlier. Parks, Rec, and Culture month-end reports. Councillor Orlando.
The numbers are up this year at the pool. There was a bit of a setback with the fire and the pool being not up to temperature, but the numbers are nevertheless up over the past 2 years, so that's good to see.
And a letter from Norm MacDonald, and that had to do with mainly about CP safety issues, which we had a presentation on today. Questions from the media?
Your worship, thank you. I have one question as with regards to the potential development of the Petro Canada station down at Burger Junction. As everybody in town knows, that intersection is a mess. What action, if any, can City Council and the City of Revelstoke make to mitigate increased traffic at that intersection?
Well, without getting into too much detail, I know that Mr. Thomas has had comments from Highways. I think that there will be a meeting with Highways, Mr. Thomas, and maybe myself, but I think that it's a concern that we're going to have to keep looking at and coming up with what we think is a long-term solution. When Highways came through in the end of November with their I think it was a 10-year transportation plan, they asked me what I felt was the #1 priority, and I told them that was that intersection right there, with all the problems that we have. And but I think that's something that we're just going to have to keep following up until we eventually come up with the solution, the long-term fix.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's it for me.
Any other media questions?
Is the coffee shop brand going to be Starbucks?
Yes. That was the best question I had all day. Alex, any questions?
Yeah, what's the timeline now in the affordable housing? I've heard there are still delays getting permits through City Hall, so can we get an update on that?
What's going to happen is that we've shortlisted our contractors, so we have a tender. We're finalizing all of the building permit with the city, which is going along extremely well. We are then going to massage the budget to satisfy BC Housing's requirements. We're going to be submitting all these things into BC Housing for final approval. Their board has to meet to give us that final approval. And shortly after that approval, we will we'll award the contract, sign the contract, and award and start construction. I don't know. I'm actually fairly optimistic, Alan, that all this will be done within 2 months. Are you not as optimistic as me?
Sure, equally as optimistic as you.
All right. So So we still have some process to go through, but we are that close, Alex. You can put that in the paper, that close.
All right.
I need a motion to move in camera pursuant to sections 90.1A, D, K, and L of the community charter. Councillor English and Councillor Nixon, all those in favor, motion's carried, thank you.